It's Africa's misfortune, if I may say so. We are not united. We don't see things the same way. Some are afraid, some are hesitant, some are there for the interests of other people. The West, there are people who grew up over there, did everything over there, and then they come and are made heads of state in Africa. So they're the ones who control all of that. And so Africa can't have its own opinion.
Greetings, families. Welcome back once again. I hope you are well. I hope your day is good. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I know I'm aware you have been waiting for this video for a long time now. Yes, it was yesterday, 28th of September. Our president has been interviewed. He has answered a lot of questions from the journalists of Burkina Faso and outside. Families have worked and work on it. And now this is the time for you to listen to him and the questions. Families, because of YouTube policies, I cannot let it play, even though it's more than 1 hour. I'll be coming in and out, but I'll make it short. I'll come in if possible. Anyway, if you are new here, in case you haven't watched up to the end, I've translated the video, work on it, very hard on it before sharing. And for YouTube, this is for educational purposes only. This is for information purposes only, nothing else. It's for us to learn from our president of Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traore, what he's doing, what he has done, and also the way forward. This is what this video is about. Families, I will leave you. Get a cup of tea, wine, whatever you prefer. Please, families, watch this news on your telly so you will not break your phone because it's more than 1 hour. I'll be back.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Since coming to power, President of Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traore, has been committed to a dynamic of transparency and accountability, and once again opens himself up to both the national and international press. Tonight, we will therefore have the opportunity to interview the head of state about his vision and the paths of the progressive popular revolution. The actions taken every day for the sovereignty, freedom, and development of Burkina Faso. Good evening, Mr. President. Good evening. Thank you for honoring us by receiving us here at the Kuluba Palace in Ouagadougou for this major interview. So, dear viewers, the format of this interview is unique. In total, 10 journalists will take turns in groups of 2 to ask their questions to the head of state. 5 areas will be covered in these discussions. These are security and defense, politics and society, diplomacy and the AES, economy and development, and finally, regional and international geopolitics. Each group of journalists will have between 15 and 20 minutes to exchange with the head of state. My role this evening is that of moderator, responsible for overseeing the debate. Mr. President, with your permission, we will now welcome the first group of journalists. They are Hervé Dapa from BF1 Television and Asmao Daou from C360 Television. Good evening, dear colleague. You have precisely 20 full minutes to speak directly with the esteemed head of state on crucial matters pertaining to national defense and overall security.
Good evening, Excellencies.
Good evening.
Some of your critics regularly bring up a statement you made, and this statement dates back to the very beginning of your time in power, when you said that if everything was done, 3 months would be enough to move towards the end of the war. And these critics now say that 3 years later, the war is still not completely over. Mr. President, this evening, how do you respond to them?
All right, thank you very much. And thank you all for coming to this interview. It's true that's what we would have wished for, but things did not turn out as we thought. And I say, everything is being done. So there are several approaches that need to be implemented in order to achieve this goal within that time frame. But not everything was implemented as we had hoped. First, adversity. So as soon as we came to power, we had hoped that we would be allowed to work quickly and make progress. Unfortunately, some people approached us and wanted us to go along with them because their goal was not for the war to end anytime soon. I'm talking about certain foreign forces that were present on our soil. We had heated debates with diplomats from elsewhere on the matter, but no one wanted us to move toward ending this war. We understood this through the messages. If people actually came to us and told us that we had to accept them supporting the terrorists while also supporting us, it means exactly what it sounds like. It's a war being deliberately maintained. So we quickly understood and we got rid of all the forces that were present here, whether French or American forces, and we realized that the real struggle would come afterward. The second thing was also we believed that we still had at least a minimum stock of weapons and ammunition. Today, I can tell you what I found, for example, in stock. There was just one supply line for all of Burkina Faso with less than 100,000 Kalashnikov rounds. And as for weapons, we barely had 100 of them. Simple ones. It was necessary to re-equip to strengthen the army in terms of personnel, weaponry, and everything else. So, if these prerequisites were met, the 3-month objective was indeed possible. But there was nothing. We were not prepared for war, neither in terms of equipment nor in terms of manpower.
Precisely, Mr. President, as you just said, when you took power, to put it bluntly, there were more men than ammunition in the Burkinabe army. And today, where do we stand with the armament program for that army? And then, what are the signs that it is gradually gaining strength?
Very well. As I said, I can't describe the whole situation as it was. It was catastrophic. And as I said, you can investigate. There may even be soldiers in this room who were on the front lines without weapons that existed in our army. So these were situations where we thought it was just, I wouldn't say bad faith, but an incomprehensible situation. For us, the weapons were there, and yet they refused to equip them. But when we were confronted with reality very quickly, we resolved first to try to arm the personnel who were present. And that's when all hell broke loose, because many powerful countries refused to sell us weapons. So we turned to those who were willing to sell us weapons. Very quickly we equipped ourselves, we recruited the VDP, and we were able to pay for everything we needed. We developed an equipment plan for a build-up in strength. And as you can see, for the past 2 years now, the equipment has started to arrive, it's still not finished, and more keeps coming in. Maybe in a few days you'll see even more new equipment being presented, which is mainly support equipment, because first, the infantry. We had to equip them so that every man could have a weapon issued to him. That was a big challenge. We've achieved it. We keep recruiting, as you can see. Every year, we recruit between 10,000 and 15,000 men. That's a considerable effort, because when we say adversity is present, the number of terrorists increases. Because the imperialists are recruiting a lot of mercenaries who come to Burkina Faso to fight. So we have to adapt to the situation. And now we have our third phase, which is no longer about buying, but about manufacturing ourselves. And we're also working on that. So that's what building up our strength means. We need to be well equipped, but also to create a defense industry. That's very important.
In a few months or a few years, we'll have our soldiers here using weapons made in Burkina.
Of course. We have the intellectual capacity, there are resources. All it took was to look for them, and there you go. We're working on it. You'll be surprised, for sure.
Mr. President, I must ask, can we truly win this ongoing war? Are we, in fact, going to ultimately win it?
We can only win it. What else would we do? Rest assured, we're not going anywhere, and we will win this war. I told you that the threat is constantly evolving, but we are adapting. And the strength of the Burkinabe army is that it is one of the most resilient armies in the world. The pressure that Burkina Faso is under, I don't think there is any other country on earth right now facing this kind of pressure. But we are holding on, we will fight, and we are constantly adapting to the threat. And we understand where the threat comes from, how it manifests itself. That's the most important thing. And right now, I can assure you that soon we will be talking about a black albino who will appear. And you'll see. Don't ask me what that means. I think you'll understand later. The war will end, and very soon.
Precisely, to win this war, as you just said, we need weapons and we also need men, especially determined men. Determination, as you know, is the major game changer. That's what makes the difference in any war. Right now, as we speak, what exactly is the morale of our troops on the ground?
You've really gotten to the heart of the problem. Human resources, determined men. It's not just about supplying equipment. We need determined men. And if you notice, we are in the process of building a quality army. And it's not uncommon that when it's judged that a unit leader or an element has failed in their mission, they are dismissed and prosecuted. This has happened several times, and it will continue this way. If you sign up to be a soldier, you must accomplish the mission because the mission is sacred to us. And another thing is that despite the pressure, despite the challenges, the men keep fighting and are very resilient. If today you catch a Burkinabe soldier and ask him, do you want other people to come fight in your place or come help you? They will never tell you that. They would rather die. That's where you can judge their morale. They are ready, always ready, despite the situation, no matter what battle we might lose. We will always hold the ground. That's what's very important for the soldier's mindset. So morale is at its highest. People never expected to have this level of equipment, but now they do. So they're giving it their all, and I can only congratulate and thank everyone who is fighting. It's very important.
So, Mr. President, in your speech, you talk about a war that takes different forms, that evolves. We keep asking ourselves this question. We wonder afterwards who is attacking.
Burkina Faso. It's not just terrorism. It's a war to seize our resources and prevent us from developing. I once explained this in a speech, I believe. I was saying that if we manage to properly exploit our subsoil resources to process what we are extracting here, what we are producing, there will be unemployment over there on their side. It's a battle. They plunder our resources in order to survive. So it's a war for independence. We must wage this war to be fully independent, to decide our own development, our own path. So that's what it's about right now.
Mr. President, as you just said, we're talking about the security and defense of Burkina Faso. Let's talk about your personal security. You just mentioned it a moment ago. The pressure is enormous. It's huge. The danger comes from everywhere. Mr. President, just in 2025, there have been several coup attempts that were foiled. Mr. President, do you ever feel afraid?
Thank you. I think that's the only strength I have. I'm not afraid. Because I trust all of you, that's the first thing. You have to trust the people, because it's the people who entrusted us with this mission. And I trust the people, that they will understand. And that's why we don't hesitate to stand before the people, to explain the situation to them and tell them what's going on. And that helps maintain a very good relationship. That's the first thing. The second thing, as I said, is that there was a mindset that needed to be developed within our own forces. That's very important. Right now, that mindset is there and people understand why they're fighting. If you look back a few years, many officers in the field didn't know why they were fighting. But if we know why we're fighting, who we're up against, and why there's this pressure, people understand better. And that's why we immediately created the Institute, the higher military school, so that we could train our own soldiers and instill in them what we want. Remember one thing, if you let your forces be trained by other powers, they put into their heads whatever they want. They indoctrinate them as they please, and it's easier to manipulate them. Here in Burkina, right now, that's actually what bothers many imperialist powers. They can't manage to infiltrate our army. All these units that have been created, all these men who are here, no one came from elsewhere to train them. We are built on our field experience, and we trained them ourselves. I personally took part in training some of these forces at the very beginning. So that's already a second strength. And the other strength is that if you have a mission, a goal for your country, you must not be afraid. If you are afraid, you hesitate. If you hesitate, you compromise. And once compromise sets in, you're done for.
Earlier, you listed a number of factors that make you feel reassured. I insist because history matters too. It's history that guides us. These imperialist forces, they are real. In 1961, they took out Patrice Lumumba in the DRC. In 1972, they took out Kwame Nkrumah in a different way. And then in 1987, they got rid of Thomas Sankara, always with internal enemies and sometimes with the complicity of certain neighbors. You know what they say, Mr. President? The first duty of a revolutionary is to stay alive in order to continue the struggle. Mr. President, can you please reassure all of these wonderful people, all of these dedicated men and women who are gathered here and elsewhere, who are truly beginning to hope that you will indeed stay alive and continue your important work?
They always manipulate from within. We are very well aware of that. And also, it is our duty to take part in our own security. It's not about saying today that I'm the head of state and I just entrust security to other people. No, everyone takes part. I myself take part. That's why I say it's not just a matter for those who are close to me, it's a matter for the whole people. And security is not just a matter of detained men or whatever else you can imagine. It's a whole system. It's also about behaviors, ways of living. We have to avoid many things, mistakes that may have been made in the past. We have read a lot about everything that imperialism has destroyed, and we have learned many lessons. That's why we say we won't let things repeat themselves. We will anticipate, even if people interpret it however they want, we will anticipate. But that's because we have understood the message, the hope that exists. We will do everything to always stay ahead of imperialism's actions.
This part, families, he talks about how foreign countries are now coming to the AES to train. I share some of them already. Yes, before they treat them as children. Sit down, let us do it for you, and with conditions. Now they want to be on their feet. They said they have grown up and they want to do their own thing. Families, please listen to more and I'll be back. Thank you.
Mr. President, from the perspective of the journalist that I am, I feel that the AES countries are being encircled. When I look a bit at Côte d'Ivoire, there is a military camp in Odiene, near Mali and Burkina. Senegal is setting up units at the border with Mali, not to mention Benin, which also borders Burkina Faso and Niger. Mr. President, do you share this point of view? Do you see things this way?
I think that when you decide to make a revolution, you have to be prepared for this adversity. It's a logic that surrounds us. It's a logic that tries to bring us down. It's logical. As I say, it's a battle. They are fighting for their interests. And it's up to us, if we've decided to make the revolution, to do everything possible so that this encirclement is defeated. You see, in Africa, we're used to not having a strong army to begin with. There is no state if there isn't a strong army. But well, that was the system. As I once said to the elders, they came to flatter us. No, you shouldn't arm yourselves. Even recently, I think there was an interview where an American general said it again, that our countries don't need to be militarized. That's their view. We're like children. They're the ones who have to come, sit down, and provide security for us. And many countries are in this situation. They don't build an army. And when the situation arises, it's chaos. We, on the other hand, are building a strong army. That's why I said we fight in Burkina Faso and we train in Burkina Faso. That's very important. What was it like before? Every time, foreign forces, everyone would come to train your soldiers. They treated you as less than nothing. Today, many forces, foreigners, are now seeking to come and train with us. You wouldn't believe it. The world's greatest powers want to come and train with us, with our soldiers. But it's not just about training. They want to learn how we do things, how we operate, who trains us. But today, no one knows how the commandos are trained, how we train them, how we equip them. Why do we think that it's others who should come and train us? They haven't created anything. They just thought about it. We have brains too. So we need a powerful army to face adversity. They will keep surrounding us because there will always be leaders in Africa like that who will allow it. They have their hands tied. They always betray. They will always allow the imperialists to come to their countries to attack their own brothers. If you accept the revolution, you have to go forward with this concept. That's how it will be. So there's nothing we can do about it. We deal with it, but it's up to us to prepare ourselves so that the encirclement is nullified, so they can never achieve their goal. That's all. So we deal with it.
Very recently, ECOWAS held a forum of Chiefs of Defense Staff of the Friends of Africa. Mali and Burkina Faso were not there, nor was Niger. We sense a lack of solidarity. You who are at the top of the state, what can you tell us about that?
Well, it's not a lack of solidarity. Keep in mind that it's a confederation, not a federation. In some respects, we do a lot of things together, at least in tandem, but in the Charter, it is stated that countries can decide on their own relationships and what they can do. We can't tell a country not to collaborate with another country. No, we're not at that stage yet. We are in the process of consolidating the Confederation in many areas, including development, defense, and diplomacy. And afterwards, we will move on to the Confederation. These are steps. So Niger can take part in meetings. The Confederation is not closed off. We are open. We interact with everyone. We are very Pan-Africanist. We are truly open to integration, to everything there is, but with principles.
All right? When it comes to defense and security, we'll leave you with one last question.
Families, a question was asked about the journalists and the national TV or national media. The relationship at the beginning, it wasn't that good, but now it's good. So the president said he's not hypocrite. They are fighting for the country. They are not fighting against the country. And everyone must get involved to fight this fight. Anyway, families, please listen.
Thank you, Sanyom. But the question I want to ask, forgive me, is not about defense or security, but about your relationship with us, the media. Mr. President, do you have a particular problem with the media, with us, the journalists? I say this because it feels like there has been a misunderstanding. I'm talking about the national media, not the international media, some of which have ended up in the trash for some time now. That's a fact. There is no national media. It seems like there was a misunderstanding at the beginning and that there's still a fog hanging over things. How do you analyze the situation, Mr. President?
You know I'm not a hypocrite. There was a misunderstanding, there was a fog at the beginning. But today I must say that I really commend the media for their professional work. We must avoid following along the work of imperialism. Of course, many among you were trained by them. That's it, you went to the white man's school, as we like to say. They're the ones who trained you in journalism. So I don't often blame you when people try to behave like them. But I speak so that people become aware that this is about our homeland. Look, this morning, for example, read the headlines in the newspapers in France. They might tell you that there was a mobilization to put pressure on the Prime Minister. They won't tell you that there was a march against the government or anything like that. But if it were in Burkina, you would say there was a march against the government. Do you understand? The French used to call us, and still call us, putiche, junta, and so on. That's French. But the journalists also called us putiche, junta, and so on. Why? Why follow? Following blindly, that's still slavery. I want us to move away from that. Every state must fight for its own interests. Journalists fight for their own interests. So why shouldn't we fight for our interests in Africa? So that's it, it's not just the journalists. I also blame some intellectuals who appear on TV panels in Africa. When they speak up, you start asking questions. But is he African? Well, genetically, he's not from here. He's not with us. That's a reality, a setback, yes. We need to decolonize our mindsets and our ways of doing things. Everyone must fight for their homeland. You might have information that is perhaps true and accurate, but you choose not to release it because it could harm national defense, security, cohesion, and so on. That is a sovereign decision because you want to protect your country. But we don't say that as soon as there is information, it must be released. No, that's not how it works. And very often journalists, as we like to say, aren't interested in trains that arrive on time. It's the train that's late that gets their attention.
You know that, Mr. President, so you understand us from time to time.
Yes, but that should be avoided. Now, I want you to take interest in trains arriving on time. All right?
I'd like to leave you with a phrase that's the motto of a great European club. It's this one. Our jersey may be stained with blood, mud, and sweat, but never with shame. That's all I wish for you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. President?
So now we move on to the political and social section of this interview. And for this segment, we welcome Mathieu Somda from Radio Burkinabe and Colette Kombari from Impact TV. Good evening, dear colleagues. You also have a full 20 minutes to thoroughly discuss important political and significant social issues with the esteemed head of state, Monsieur PD.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, September 30th, 2022 to September 30th, 2025. Soon it will be 3 years of managing state power. What is your interim assessment in terms of implementing your vision and direction? Politically, through the progressive and popular revolution.
It must be said that we took over the country with a certain situation on the security front, but also with a different situation on the economic and political fronts. There were a lot of reforms to be made, so many in fact, that we couldn't list them all at once. So we had an ideology. We began to implement the revolution up until last April, when we officially proclaimed it. And when we talk about a revolution, it means revolutionizing every aspect of our lives. Because we can't keep doing the same things as before and expect different results. If we were just going to continue as before, I think it would have been better to let the politicians carry on with their own ways. But we wanted to break away. And breaking away requires a lot of commitment. Thank God the people understood. Everyone realized that a break was necessary. Whether it's in terms of behavior, practices, governance, the economy, trade, and everything that goes along with it. And every day, I can tell you, we keep discovering new things. Because the system that was in place, I like to use a metaphor and say it was like a big knot that we found. You untie one and another appears. When you untie one, another one shows up. So there were many problems in our society that we are currently working to solve. And thank God I can say that many things have been initiated, and overall, for me at least, the results are satisfying, even though I think we can still make more effort. And if you wish, you can ask me questions about each area, because there are many things that have been started.
This question is about the popular progressive revolution. It's about education, how things has changed drastically, and if the citizens or some of the citizens has to change as well. He talks a lot about this. Family space, listen once again and I'll be back. Thank you so much for your patience and your time.
Your Excellency, regarding the revolution or the progressives, there have certainly been explanations, but some people still haven't really understood what this revolution is about. The exact content, as I said once before, I will not reveal. If you allow everyone to know the details of what you want to do, they can anticipate your actions. But we have outlined the main points so that people can understand where we are headed. So if you notice, in the very model of governance, the fight against corruption is good governance. First, there is the example that leaders must set. As I say, you cannot be there, a certain category of Burkinabe, just because you have been entrusted with positions. For you, it's a choice between good whiskey and fine champagne. While women are dying as they go to fetch water from the river, drowning or something, it's just not acceptable. So there is this mindset that we need to have in order to build a just society. Everyone should be able to have access, for example, to clean drinking water. You can't just eat whatever you want, choose your meals, throw away whatever you like, while others can't even have a single meal. That's what led us to launch initiatives in agriculture, for example, because the majority of our population works in agriculture. But for a long time, we realized that they have been neglected. It's not that our land is poor, it's not that they lack the ability to work, but they also needed that boost, which is what led us to create these initiatives. Today, I think that the most important thing for me is that when you go into the countryside and ask the farmers questions, they can honestly tell you that now they feel good. They farm, they have enough to feed themselves, and the surplus, they sell. Generally, the community pays for it, creating a security stockpile. And when in certain areas or at certain times there are problems, they take it out and sell it at a well-subsidized price, accessible to everyone. So that's very important. The ideology of revolutionizing many sectors, when you look at the field of public finance itself, we're in the process of digitizing many aspects with a lot of difficulty because people don't like it. Soon, for example, we're going to launch electronic invoicing. Already, when we introduced the idea, many major operators were opposed to it. Why don't they want transparency? Because people have gotten used to cheating, to stealing. It's like a norm. That's what's been established, so all of that needs to change. When it comes to infrastructure, there are a lot of things. The area of public procurement and everything related to it was actually the most corrupt sector. So you're an entrepreneur, you come to see us, we give you the contract, you overcharge, and then we split something under the table. That's the golden rule. And so when someone even comes with a different idea, you're automatically excluded. You're not allowed in if we let this continue. In that case, I don't think we can get out of it. We wouldn't be able to pay for weapons because, as I said, if you don't achieve economies of scale, you can't equip yourself. You won't find a single bank in the world where you can get a loan to buy weapons. That doesn't exist. It's with your own funds that you can equip yourself. In any case, we never had that opportunity. And if anyone knows of one, maybe we'd be interested. And everything we're currently acquiring, I told you once about the amount. It's in the billions of dollars.
Excellencies, as you have said several times, order and discipline are necessary for the development of FASO. The retraining of young people has already begun. How can we involve other segments of society?
There you go, very good. This program is a vast one, which we did not want to go into detail about. But I mentioned once during one of my interviews that there is a large program underway. We have to start. Actually, young people are good, but they're not even our main focus. Our target is the little ones. The little ones, they're our target. After Sankara's death, as you know, all the daycare workers were sought out. Some of them even passed away, unfortunately. But the daycares were closed. Maybe it was the private sector that managed to get by, opening a few preschools and such. And well, school became something else entirely. You know, if you want a society that will be combative and competitive tomorrow, you have to invest in children. Today, I separated the two ministries so that the Ministry of Basic Education could take this aspect into account. You see, we launched a lot of recruitment through the normal competition for early childhood supervision. But we have just exceptionally launched another round for those who have already been trained, whom we want to recruit, so that this year we can start a certain program. They are the target group. And we will get there. We have a program so that we can start a certain patriotic and civic education at the level of the youngest children. And once that's instilled there, we will have good citizens tomorrow. We're also doing this with the youth. We had the high school graduates go through immersion. They were afraid at first, but I think they've learned a lot. They need to be more supportive, humble, and they need to understand Burkina, because someone who was born, here in Ouagadougou, who is in, well, he sleeps in whatever bed he wants. He even complains that the mattress isn't good enough. In the morning, he gets to choose whatever he wants for breakfast. During immersion, he sleeps on the floor on a mat. He'll understand that there are other Burkinabe who sleep on the floor. During immersion, he doesn't get to choose his breakfast. If there is any, there is. If there isn't any, he eats what everyone else eats. Already, in his mind, he understands that there are two sides to Burkina Faso. And I'm talking about the immersion of the private school student. There are days when they'll have 2 meals, days with 1 meal, and days with no meals at all. I hope they've done it. It's so that they understand life. We're young, but if we've reached this age and still haven't understood that there are different kinds of Burkinabe, that's dangerous. Young people need to understand that there are some who can't even afford a meal. And when he goes to bed hungry after a whole day without eating, do you really think that if he's given a responsibility tomorrow, he'll always have his head on straight? If I have, who squander money and have nothing to eat, it's their conscience that will make them grow. So these are the trials we make them go through. I had planned for 45 days, but because of the registrations, I said to do 30 days. But for the next sessions, I hope we'll go for 45 days. So future high school graduates and gold medal certificate holders should get ready to face this. And the program will continue to grow. This was the first experience. But we hope to be able to change even the mentality of the youth.
Your Excellency. Thank you so much, families, for listening and watching. He talks about the land, the chiefs, the traditional. Recently, the lawyers has come up with giving some of the power to the chiefs in the communities to deal with affairs, how they are doing, how it's working a lot. Families, I'll be back once again. Thank you for your time.
Your Excellencies, in the Council of Ministers, the decision to reform the agrarian and land law, as well as the status of customary and traditional chiefs, was adopted. What are the motivations?
The agrarian reform was necessary. You know how many conflicts have arisen over this issue of land? There are villages that have fought with machetes, families that have been divided because of the land issue. The state must take responsibility. But if you hesitate because you're afraid to declare it, fearing that some people might feel frustrated or not, that's why the revolution is welcome. At some point, a decision must be made to put an end to all this. How many real estate developers were there in Burkina in 2010? I don't think there were even 20. Suddenly, in 2015, there were more than 200. They bought up land everywhere. They're dividing it up. They sell, they resell, they've plundered the land, and it's dangerous. Currently, we have a CCAD application that we've just launched, and we're in the process of re-registering. But what's happening is terrible. Even plots in the cities, people sell and resell them to several different people because it wasn't digitized. It's a huge registry. Do you think someone can go through the records, find the parcel number, see who it belongs to, and then you go and buy it? It's just not. So, there are a lot of duplicates, and it creates conflicts. And while those politicians were doing that, they were attending conferences, events, talking about social cohesion. You can't promote social cohesion while dividing people over land. That's why we decided to take responsibility and put a stop to this massacre. And so, the land belongs to the state. And from now on, we will do everything we can to balance the situation as much as possible so that people don't feel wronged. It's the same for traditional chieftaincy. This law has been around for a long time. A very long time from what I've been told, but no one wants to act on it. But we have decided to get involved to take a closer look because as far as I'm concerned, traditional chieftaincy must be respected, must be listened to, and must be the one working for social cohesion. When they speak, when there is a conflict, a contentious situation, they must speak up to bring people together and their voice must carry weight. So there are a certain number of privileges, if I can put it that way, that we've put in place, symbols of authority we've established so that people respect them. Whether people like it or not, they are respected. And they themselves command respect. Because recently, politicians had manipulated them. Many people today regret having marched alongside the politicians. There are villages where people are divided, where people no longer respect the chiefs. But with this law, in any case, that we brought to the LTE, we tried to clarify many things so that their respect in society could be restored. And that is very important.
Excellencies, the fight against terrorism is affecting our social fabric with suspicions of communal exaltation. Living together is threatened by a right. How can we get Burkinabés to reconnect with core values such as solidarity, civic-mindedness, and social cohesion?
I think these values are coming back on their own. On the contrary, the war has also led people to understand many things and people are starting to unite more. You know, social inequalities create more problems for social cohesion than terrorism does. There were too many social inequalities. I used to tell some people, I said, listen, you've had enough to eat. How are you going to sit down with someone who hasn't eaten at all and talk about social cohesion? It's not possible. It's the same situation I just mentioned to you. We must try as much as possible to bring people to a certain level. As long as there is wealth, it should be well distributed. That's the first step. When it comes to abuses and everything else, we need to be careful. There are a lot of people who have made allegations. Just recently, when we saw the case in Solenzo, they released images, talked and talked. We didn't say anything, we kept calm. When they finished talking, we showed the truth. The civilians who claimed that the forces had killed were actually transported here to Ouagadougou and put in safety. If they were killed, why are they in Ouagadougou? How did they end up in Ouagadougou? Often, it's done deliberately. They make up whatever they want with their NGOs, their media, and all that. But we let it go. When they're done, we show the truth. That's it. The terrorists did use civilians as human shields, that's true. But the forces were able to tell the difference. And after the fighting, they gathered the civilians from Solenzo. We sent the necessary resources to transport them here, and they were presented in front of everyone. There were hundreds of civilians. They gave their testimony. So we need to be careful about the stories told by certain people who just want to push their own theories. And their goal is to divide us. But we must not fall into that trap.
Excellencies, this year we have seen the resumption of social dialogue between the government and the unions after several years of interruption. What message does your government send together with its social partners, knowing that the situation was tense between the government and the unions?
Just as it was tense between the government and the journalists. Everyone needs to understand that we must fight for our homeland. We made it clear, I spoke with the union leaders. I gathered them here, I spoke to them at a certain point in our history. But I was disappointed afterwards. So I told them, either you are Burkinabe or you are not Burkinabe. So the standoff began. But afterwards, we decided to meet with them again because we assumed they had understood the message. And even then, I won't lie, when they came, they still wanted to understand and started displaying certain behaviors. The measures we take, it doesn't work. The country is at war, we have to do everything for the country. This imported unionism, that's not real unionism. There are even some who boast about having participated in the fall of Sankara. And it's them who started everything, and so on. Do you think that's a good thing? The Westerners manipulate you and you keep acting just the way they want. That's not unionism. A union fights for the interests of the workers. But most of the time, what the leaders really want is to come and share in the spoils with those in power. And people stay silent. No. Listen, we have a lot of files on a lot of, not just the unionists. In society, we have a lot of files. People who approached us at the beginning, who wanted favors, who wanted things we refused, who then turned away, who left, who talk. We have their files. So healthy unionism. There are a lot of actions that we have taken. We didn't wait for people to take to the streets to act. When I was talking about daycare workers, it wasn't someone who came to tell us that there were workers who had been let go and needed to have their rights restored. We saw a case and decided that their rights needed to be restored. We told the finance ministers, find the necessary funds to resolve this. The people from City Hall, the Green Brigade, those who work, they had months of back pay owed to them. For these people, those who are out of work, people weren't fighting for them before. No one came to us to say, hey, the women are sweeping branches at my place. It was one of my men who brought it up once. They said, it's been months like this, and so on, with their work. I looked into it, and he told me it was true. I said, as soon as we can, we need to make up for everything they've missed. Some of them had several, even dozens of months of back pay owed. We pulled out the files and decided to make up for all of that. So, we need to practice unionism. If there's a problem, people should come to us and explain it. If we can solve it, we'll tell you we can do it. If we can't, we'll tell you, for now we can't, but we'll be able to do it in a certain amount of time. But if there's a problem, we gather the media and speak however we want. I hope they'll find a solution with you. Otherwise, if after that you don't come to us anymore, I want us to work in an African way. When there's a problem at home, we sit down, we talk, and we have to be truthful. What we can do, we must say clearly, we can do this. What we can't do, we'll also tell you that we can't. Now, if you don't want to, everyone does what they can, but we have to be responsible. There is no problem that cannot be solved. And as I always say, always act with the interests of the nation in mind. That is very important. So we resumed the dialogue as we do with everyone. We haven't broken off dialogue with anyone. Everyone is welcome here.
Thank you, dear colleagues. The allotted time for this segment has come to an end and even gone well over. We sincerely thank you for this comprehensive series of insightful questions dedicated to the crucial political and social segment. Mr. President, the concerns related to the economy and development will be addressed by Soumaila Rabo from Savan Media and Jean-Marie Tawe from Sidwaya Publishing. Good evening, dear colleagues. You also have 20 minutes to address the head of state.
Good evening, Mr. Sayon, Mr. President. Despite the security crisis and the international situation, the Burkinabe economy is doing well with a 1.5% increase in economic growth rate in 2024. We know that the improvement in the security situation has played a major role, but so have agriculture and the services sector. What is the government doing right now to allow the national economy to keep up this momentum?
All right, thank you. We can see that these are macroeconomic figures. We are aware of this and we constantly review the situation with the Minister of Finance. Efforts are being made. It's true that there are areas that have been secured which allow us to produce. And so agricultural production has increased significantly, which allows for processing at the level of the small units we have, but also for exporting the surplus of certain products. So this contributes greatly to the trade balance. There is also the issue of mining itself. So there are a number of mines that had stopped operating, if you remember. Some in 2020, others even in 2018, but they have also resumed operations. And all of these contributes to that growth. And we are continuing in this direction. And currently, if you look at the mining sector, for example, the government's approach is to exploit our gold ourselves. So there are mines that we have just taken control of, and we will continue to gradually regain control, to co-exploit with the companies that are already there. Because what was the rule? Someone comes, gets the permit, exploits it, 10% goes to the government, and the rest is for them. And by the way, we have no control over that 10%. So right now, we are really taking back control to make sure we know what is coming out of our subsoil. They also take a significant share. So all of this contributes to economic growth, especially considering the initiatives we've launched in the agricultural sector. Many other ventures have been financed, and in any case, this allows for solid growth. But for me, the most important thing is that when the Minister of Finance often brings the figures, I say, well, that's all very good, but I send someone to the market. You see, that's what we call an empamore. How much does a can of corn cost? How much does a can of millet cost? I gather the information, and if the cost has gone down, we know there's an impact on the population. That's what's most important. So we do this work constantly, and even the intelligence services are involved so that we don't just announce a macroeconomic figure showing 1.5% growth that has no impact, especially on the most vulnerable groups. So we will continue this progress, God willing.
Mr. President, if the goal is to further ease the burden on households and improve consumers' purchasing power, perhaps we should look at SONAB, the National Bunyave Hydrocarbons Company, which you found to be running a deficit at the end of 2022 and which is now practically flush with cash because it has become the champion among state-owned companies. That's half of the profits made by state-owned companies in 2024. Shouldn't we now lower the price of fuel?
All right, thank you. I think that's a question people might ask themselves. It's very good, we've made progress, but when did we break even and start making profits? What did we do? That's very important to understand. And the other thing is, don't these profits contribute to something else? For the benefit of the people. Let me give you an example. We are currently setting up road construction brigades in every region. You see our road network? Even what already exists is in poor condition, even the RN one. If you leave from here all the way to the Kokolowo area, it's completely deteriorated. That means we have a significant need for investment in this sector. Road infrastructure. And SONAB must play a major role. I've just assigned it this new mission because the fuel that will supply the different brigades, even the bitumen and all that, SONAB will have to take care of it. If we slow down, the pace will slow down. But do you want us to move quickly or not? And there's also a question of, I wouldn't call it comparison. You see, fuel is cheaper in Burkina than in some coastal countries. We go get the fuel over there, transport it all the way to Burkina, but it's still cheaper compared to those countries. Can you explain that? If we were to raise it to their level, we would have a lot of protests, and I can even tell you that we could pave a lot more roads than we think. But we always keep it like this because we want to move quickly. Today, we really have to thank the people and the friends of Burkina Faso. A lot of people contribute, for example, like Mbom, to beautify the cities, to build roads and all that. At a certain point, the government also started by funding, but we will have to keep funding so that the pace continues. So it's a symbiosis between us and the people. And I think that if they understand the effort we're making, where their money is going, people need to realize that we can stay on this path. When we reach a certain goal, we'll be able to lower it. That's only logical. No one wants to be rich and have their children live in poverty, if I can put it that way. So the wealth will be shared, but we are behind, and we have to catch up. Right now, for example, I was telling you that we can't keep paying for military equipment. We need to produce it ourselves. And to produce, you need to build factories. You won't go somewhere to ask for a loan to build a factory of that kind. No, no one will give you that. Even the equipment that makes up the factories themselves, no one will sell it to you. So that's something that has to be done internally. There are many things we do, and you won't be given a loan for that. And look at all this equipment. Just think about how many billions it costs. It's not someone's loan, it's taxpayers' money. So these are things we ourselves wanted in order to move quickly. Do you think that if I had a 200 billion loan in 2023, I would equip all of Burkina Faso in 2023? But no one wants to give you loans for that kind of thing. So in the end, it's the people's money. That equips the people. So there are many areas where we do it ourselves. And so that requires at least a minimum of sacrifice. When we reach that level, don't be surprised. As soon as we feel that, yes, we can do it, we will do it.
So, Your Excellency, in the infrastructure sector with Sonab Faso Mebo, as well as in industries with Fasokosam, the tomato factories, SM Sosiko, and the mines, the state is becoming more and more involved. Isn't the state starting to take the place of the private sector?
That's a very good question. Well, you have to make a choice. That's one thing. And another thing is, you shouldn't see it that way. The private sector still has its areas of activity, but you need to have the ability to adapt. There are things that should be handled by the state, but then it's private again. Why is that? Well, we don't have elections to finance. We don't have accounts to open elsewhere to secure anything. None of that interests us. So our relationship with the private sector is becoming healthier and healthier. Everyone does what they're supposed to do, pays the taxes they're supposed to pay, and we always tell them to adapt. When it comes to the mining sector, I gathered the operators and told them, invest in the mines. Many didn't understand. At least one of them started investing, and I think I recently met him at the university. And I told him that I was the one who opened his eyes, that he didn't know there was money to be made there. For him, it's all about import-export. You're just sending our foreign currency out of the country. And the people aren't working. That's just one example. So he's starting to change a little. As for me, the Minister of Agriculture, you remember, he held sessions in Bobo. He gathered the business operators when we wanted to launch the Bagre poles and all that, the revival of activity, the offensive. But I can tell you today, no one has invested. I said, okay, I had a report made on the results of the offensive. Since we're now in 2025, the minister is the share that private investors were supposed to take to invest in our growth hubs. I asked them which private investors were able to invest in the land and all that. They said no one. It was those who were already involved in bankruptcy products. Those things we actually encouraged. The cooperatives, they were the ones who continued. But the major operators, I told them there was no one. They said, okay, very well. Don't be surprised if tomorrow I say no one will take money to send abroad to pay for imported rice. You invest to grow rice. You have to know how to change. You have to know how to adapt to the ideology of those in power. So the private sector will always have something to do, but you have to adapt to the context. Because if we leave everything to the private sector, there will be no country. That's what was already happening. When you look at the CCVA, which one of you doesn't have a vehicle that gets inspected? Do you dare take your car and drive without an inspection, huh? Technical inspection? The police will stop you, right? Who are the police? It's the people who pay, it's those who are mandated by the people to do this policing. If the police have to check vehicles to force you to get a technical inspection, and that structure belongs to a private company, has been privatized, the money, I would say, is basically free, privatized. Do you think that's normal? Sociokos was privatized. Many companies have been privatized. But this could bring in money for the state, and the state is supposed to work for everyone. If you privatize everything, then what do? Where does the state get its money from? Don't we want to build our country? Do we just want to stay like this, in the situation we're in now? No, we want to build. We want to produce. We want everyone to live well and in peace. We want to see our children in different kinds of schools. We want our country to develop. And for that, the state must be responsible and take charge in certain areas. Even the mining sector, we are in the process of buying it back. The first two mines that we decided to buy back, it's not that we took them away, we bought them back. And as you saw, it's nearly 100 billion. But it was the state that paid to buy back these mines. And now it's us, we are the ones operating them. And that's how we'll keep doing it. Even the shares I said we would take, we are going to buy back those shares. The state needs to be strong. If the state isn't strong, you don't have a country. You shouldn't fool yourself about that. Capitalism can only be ruthless. If you let capitalism develop to a certain level, in the end, you'll lose yourself. If you set up an industry right away to manufacture, I don't know what, your goal is to make a profit. At first, you might set up a factory that employs maybe 500 people. And gradually, you automate. In the end, your factory only has 10 people left. There's a computer doing the work. The other 490 are unemployed. We are against that system. We regulate as well. Of course, things are digitalized, but we're against a certain level of robotization. So we have an ideology that we will implement gradually, but people need to adapt to this ideology. It's for everyone's well-being. Otherwise, we'll end up in very uncomfortable situations.
Mr. President, does that mean you're attacking the market economy, which is currently taught in economics and with which systems and young economists are growing up? Because today, the state is selling yogurt through Faso COSAB. You've announced the Faso yards, and people are wondering when you will open the first shops. With all this, you're gradually taking the place of the private sector, and we don't know when it will stop.
First, I told the Minister of Higher Launching to change me. First, the university map has changed, but the curriculum has changed everything. Why do we absolutely have to learn their way of doing economics? Aren't we capable of creating? Is it God who came down again, as I like to say? To create, to bring people together, to create schools? These are people who created concepts and who created schools. It was human beings who created schools. So they were the ones who set up the programs and so on. The curriculum in the United States is different from the one in France, different from the one in England, and so on. Each country has its own way of teaching its people to reach the level they want. So we too are going to create our own model. In fact, that's what puts us behind. Unfortunately, our school model isn't good. We took it from others. We adapt it, and in the end, what are we actually producing? Okay, we train a lot of economists with this approach. But does it work? Does it really work? All right, we're in the process of changing the system. Are we making any progress or not? That's the question. That's the whole question. He talked about the MBA, about various things. There are dams that have been damaged for decades, made of sand or whatever. This season, the water is inside. It's thanks to our system. When we manage to restore these dams, people can produce during the rainy season. They can produce all year round, and they're very happy. They also have drinking water through the Onya, thanks to these dams, for drinking. And we're going to keep going like this. Should we do this? Or should we just sit back and say, no, everything should be for the private sector? And first of all, this issue of the private sector, there are people who still have a backward political mentality. And we told people to change. You followed the statements of some ministers closely. Okay, we give you a project, you take the advance payment for starting work and everything, and then you do whatever you want. We give you a project in Bafum, and in the contract you're supposed to finish by May so that the farmers can access Bafum and start cultivating. You take your advance and just wander around, doing whatever you please. In April, we come by, we look, you haven't done anything. You say, no, 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 you're going at your own pace. That's how it is. We force you, you finish the Bafum project. There are some who work at night, even now, to meet the objectives. It's not that they can't do it, but it's a mindset. And as long as the private sector has this mindset, it's not going to work. I've told you that we're nearly 1,000 years behind. We have to catch up. We're still in the 1800s. We need to make up for lost time, but we can't keep going with this mindset. So we're encouraging people to change and adapt. You're talking about yogurts, for example. Is the market is saturated? We import. I would like to see private companies get into the yogurt business so that we no longer have to import. We have enacted regulations stating that when something is produced in Burkina Faso, you need a special import permit to be able to import it. This means you have to buy what's available locally first. Only when there is a shortage are you then allowed to import. That's so that people get involved. You can see that many private companies are opening factories and all that. If we didn't use this method, how would we manage? There's the big Faso mill that's already there, but we need to restructure all of that. But at the same time, we've required the major importers to open mills as well. I myself attended the inauguration last time on the other side. He's one of the biggest importers. When we said we were going to suspend imports, he wasn't happy. He tried everything, but we said that's what we're going to do. Either you adapt or the state will step in. They're doing it, but are we able to meet the demand? There's room for it. We have the population, we have a large market, an immense market in Burkina and in Africa, but people just need to adapt, to produce. So there will always be room. Don't think that we've necessarily taken the place of the private sector. No.
You're going to forget the ways of...
Yes, it's necessary to regulate because there's this mentality of always causing speculation among certain people. No, it's dangerous. Recently, you followed the case with the motorcycles. Unfortunately, it was only when the situation happened that we realized it wasn't even a regular market. So quickly, we had to see how we could regulate this market so that imports could be monitored. How can someone go import motorcycles and then tell you they don't have a purchase invoice? Since the ministry needs the purchase invoice to see everything you've paid in customs duties and so on, and to set a margin that must not be exceeded. He says he doesn't have an invoice, so he goes to buy, comes back, sets whatever price he wants, and resells to the public. No, he gets richer while others get poorer. And generally, when people get rich, what do? If they used to drink Burkina here, now they don't drink Burkina anymore, they're after champagne. It's money going out. If they used to drive, say, a small car, now they're looking for a V8. The fuel that's subsidized by the state, there it is. That's money going out. So we need to think about the economy. What are we doing? We must not let foreign currency leave the country. You say you want the currency and you want us to keep behaving like this. We can't keep behaving like this. That's why the state is taking back control. If tomorrow people come to an agreement, they've tried to blackmail us, haven't they? When we tried to tighten things up a bit at customs, some people told us that if we did that, there would be a rice shortage. I said, okay, go ahead and create a rice shortage. You'll see what we'll do. If tomorrow some people want to collude to create a rice shortage, then it's necessary for the state to take charge of rice imports. We're ready for anything. People need to change their mindset. Go easy, look out for your own interests, no matter how small, but also allow other Burkinabés to live and not to impoverish them.
Mr. President, we saw you in Lumbila with the women farmers, supporting and assisting them. But beyond that, what are you doing to provide even more income-generating opportunities for the women of Burkina who drive the small-scale economy in neighborhoods and villages?
Very good, and that's one of the most important points. I even told the Ministry of Humanitarian Action, which deals with women's issues, to refocus their efforts, not just on providing assistance, but on creating jobs and small businesses. Women have many qualities. Look at the small-scale processing of our consumer products. Women are very capable of doing this. They are much more patient than men. And they know how to do certain things better than men. We need to encourage them to do so. I went to Tenkodogo myself and I saw women making their preferred couscous, which is good for strength, the liquid soap they produce, and so on. I gave instructions for us to purchase the liquid soap from all these women who have been trained and who managed to make liquid soap for our administrations. Everything here is imported, even in your own offices. All the liquid soaps are imported, aren't they? That's not right, because we don't make it ourselves. And when I said to do it, at one point I thought, no, they don't have a formal structure. I said, I won't understand anything. Find a way, it's their soap, you pay and you bring it in. I think it's just a matter of packaging. Even if you bring it to my office in recycled jugs, like those used for drinking water, I'll use it. It's not a big deal. In the meantime, that's just how it is. If we want luxury, let's accept our realities, transform what we need and consume that. And we'll evolve gradually, step by step. A woman who can transform her business on a small scale, if we support her by giving her contracts and opportunities, tomorrow she could have a large company that produces and exports. That's the mindset we need to develop. So I told the ministry to stop focusing on humanitarian aid, on assistance. No. We need to identify the problems women are facing. We have a lot of products we're making today. We can process them, even on a small scale, and find a way to bring people together. I spoke with women in Bubu. I told them oilseed products. Women can produce crude oil through cooperatives and find people with a certain level of expertise to set up a refinery. And their role is to buy the crude oils and refine them to provide high-quality oil for the market. We need to move in that direction. But if we just sit back and say, well, I don't have the capacity to make oil and the refinery is expensive, not everyone is required to build a refinery. But we can organize things so that you see. So in many areas, that's what we're trying to develop and enable women to really put into practice. Everything they know how to do. It's a policy that's been set in motion, and I believe you'll see the results.
Madam Rapporteur Jean-Marie Taoué, this will be the last question. Thank you for your various concerns addressed to the head of state. We now welcome Secure Tangara from African Television and Abdul Zure from Faso 7. They will be discussing with you topics related to diplomacy and the AIS. Good evening, dear colleagues. You now have 15 minutes for this segment.
Thank you, Sanyo. Mr. President, the Alliance of Sahel States is 2 years old. How is it doing today? What is its current state of health?
Thank you. I would say that the assessment of its state of health can be felt through the population. And through the population, I think it is doing well because the AIS does not belong to the leaders. The AIS belongs to the people. And the people have embraced it, which makes what is happening truly exceptional. The AIS has been able to unite and bring people together, and that's what matters most. So we give thanks to God.
It's like a 2-year-old child. It feels like the head is there, and so are the feet. Mr. President, it seems like the arms are not there yet. We're talking about implementing agencies, about project owners. There was talk of transforming the authority of the government hospital into an implementing agency. When will the people of the AIS be able to see these development projects, these major projects that benefit the population?
Very well. I think this is a transition that is currently underway. It's not final yet, to begin with. There is still ongoing reflection because there is currently a provisional administrator in place. We need to consider how we can effectively turn it into an implementing agency. So this is an ongoing reflection because we must avoid the mistake of recreating the same institutions. If we model ourselves after the same institutions that failed, it won't work. And what kind of projects do we want to carry out for the population? What did the LG do, and what do we want now? What is the routine for some implementing agencies, or what? It's seeing donors gather funding for projects. That means, in practical terms, for the people. Is that what we want? I don't think so. We are starting from an endogenous question. If we talk about endogeneity, that's why the investment bank, if you notice, the deduction is made so that we can supply the investment bank. If we want it to function and it needs to carry out projects in the region, the bank must be able to finance them up front. But if it's just to set up an agency and then go back to the same imperialists to borrow money for certain projects for which they might not even share our vision, then it's not so clear-cut. So the discussion is still ongoing. Nothing is final yet.
Mr. President, the IUS is also about the fight against terrorism. Today, where do we stand with the joint force? And what are the key actions that have been taken on the ground?
So, regarding the joint force, we have established the structure, as you have seen. The command post is set up in Niamey. Currently, it's about equipping the first units. For example, in Burkina Faso, the 1st battalion is ready. The equipment for these battalions is also there. And we are currently training the 2nd battalion, which should be ready in about 2 months. The concept is that each country orders its own equipment. We have established a standard set of equipment that each battalion must have. So the equipment needs to be ordered so we can equip the armies. And as I said, up to now, we do not manufacture certain types of equipment. We forgot to place the order, and you can see how crazy the world is. Everyone is preparing for war. You can order a piece of equipment today, and they tell you 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, sometimes even years. So we forgot to take that into account. And with joint forces, it requires significant communication. So you understand all the logistics involved in terms of communications behind it. It has to be perfect. That's why we're not rushing things. Already, there are many operations being carried out jointly. So these are already the beginnings of the force. No matter what happens between Niger or on the Malian side, our forces are already able to coordinate and work together. That's the most important thing.
When we look to stay on the topic of the joint force, when we look at the picture of the IS, the Confederation is surrounded by countries with which there is often diplomatic discussion. That is to say, if we take Niger, there are discussions with Benin, Mali, discussions with Algeria. Burkina, even if it's not often mentioned, has minor frictions with Côte d'Ivoire. How can we turn these diplomatic frictions into operational opportunities to fight terrorism? Mr. President?
That's exactly what I'm saying. You see, it's all around the IS. If we are aware of the threat surrounding us, the only opportunity, the only real opportunity, is to build very strong armies and to try to develop ourselves. That's the only opportunity. Otherwise, adversity will always be there. It's not like what you mentioned. It's real. It's real. But what can we really do? The problem in Africa, very often, is the leaders. These diplomatic frictions. Personally, I don't even like to say frictions between states. There are no frictions between the two countries. There are frictions between the leaders of the countries.
But when it comes to the IS and those countries, they cooperate, they share information, there is collaboration.
Well, for certain cases, I don't know. But I'll take, for example, the case of, even with Benin, we don't have the same approaches when it comes to terrorism. I'll take, for example, the case of Benin. Before I went to Moscow the last time, in May, one day I was there and there was a threat hanging over one of those countries. And the military don't wait to escalate things to the political level or anything like that for certain matters. They contacted our forces in the east, who confirmed in any case the threat. They asked if we could do something about it. I was still there. It was a Saturday, I remember. I ordered our aircraft to go check things out and see what was happening because they had intercepted the communication from the group. Sure enough, the drones arrived at the border. I saw that the terrorists were gathering not far from their base. We struck and aborted the attack. It wasn't just once, it wasn't just twice. The forces cooperate. That's the military spirit. A good soldier knows that a threat is, above all, a shared threat. But now, often at the leadership level, many haven't understood this. They're caught up in pointless wars. But the most important thing is that the threat is shared. If anyone thinks they can escape the threat, they're mistaken. So we cooperate. The military cooperates, as you must have seen. For example, between us and the leaders, let's be honest, things aren't going well. But you must have seen our soldiers very often even meeting, sitting together at the border, talking. That's just how it is. It's part of it.
This is an opportunity to talk about 6 elements of the DARA. Where do we stand? We heard the authorities during a press conference. They talked about it, about whether or not they would do it. How is it going?
What did they say? They crossed the border, they were apprehended. Are they here?
All right.
Every time someone crosses the border, they come in, they take action. If they're civilians, usually citizens, who ask questions, who conduct investigations, that's actually espionage. It makes sense to arrest them and question them. It's like before, there were gendarmes who crossed the border armed. It happened twice, there were 6, and then 2 more in the meantime. We arrested them, we brought them all the way to Ouagadougou. With their weapons, we questioned them. But one day, the Minister of Defense told me that they were in the place called Logo and that the disappointed ones managed to free them. I worked in intelligence and I said, well, listen, if they didn't come with bad intentions and all that, brotherhood in arms and so on, they should be released. That same day, they were released. And we also hoped that the Ivorians, since there were civilians who were imprisoned, would release them. Unfortunately, 2 or 3 days later, we learned of the death of our brother in prison. And the others who are in prison are still in prison. And even if they are civilians, merchants, listen, that's not good cooperation. So to sum up, we're waiting. We haven't received anything yet, like, an approach or anything at all.
Yet, the spokesperson for the Ivorian government indicated that they hope, in fact, that they are favoring the path of dialogue with Burkina Faso. He said this at a press conference last Wednesday.
We're left waiting. For us, if we had favored the path of dialogue, we also hoped they would release our innocent civilians, that they would come, but instead there's been a death in their prison, which isn't even a conventional prison. So listen, everyone has to take responsibility for their actions. And as for us, we don't seem to be lying. What is real, we say it. We don't have anyone approaching us first. So the situation is just as it is. That's it.
The relationship between the IUS and South AO is clear. It's transparent. It's a break. We're asking questions regarding Liumur. Recently, during the Conference of Finance Ministers of Liumur, it was supposed to be Burkina Faso presiding over the Conference of Ministers. That was not the case. How was this issue addressed at the level of the College of Heads of State within the IUS? How do you interpret this?
No, it's not surprising. We were prepared for that. It's not surprising. There are people who claim to govern all of West Africa and who are that doesn't work with us. It doesn't work. We've told them clearly. Me, I have people with certain heads of state. They say it doesn't work.
Is there any reason to leave Liumur over the presidency?
It's out of necessity. And maybe we're heading in that direction. If we can't govern, what do you want? They're after me. It was the same case when he gave in at the top. They're pushing us out the door, so we'll leave. So when we look at them, the ball is in their court.
While preparing for the show, we learned that you like this phrase, everything is urgent. Within the IS, is there anything more urgent even when prioritizing emergencies?
What
can we prioritize today?
The top priority emergencies in the IS are security issues. That's the most urgent. And now comes the issue of development, which is linked to the security question. We need to free our lands and secure our people. That is the absolute priority. So all our efforts, all our focus, even our daily tasks must be directed toward that. Every time there is an incident, as head of state, we must be informed and we must feel it, we must find solutions and so on. That is what matters most. And to constantly think about it. Reclaiming our lands, ensuring security, making sure that even in 100 years this situation never happens again.
For the President, ICE is even more than that. It's a shared destiny. We are curious to know how the other ICE countries perceive the revolution in Canada.
Maybe they will join the revolution. It's a step forward. But it should be known that the Burkina Faso is intrinsically revolutionary. It's the same people with the mentality we've managed to instill today. But fundamentally, you yourself are Burkina Faso. You know that we are not easy people. The Burkina Faso is intrinsically revolutionary. That's why the revolution takes hold more easily. Even when we weren't making a revolution, people themselves were demanding one. So the others will surely proclaim it too, I hope. We have no choice but to make a revolution. It's a completely different concept. The market doesn't have it. We need to revolutionize.
Thank you very much for these various and insightful questions regarding diplomacy and the IUS. I appreciate your interest. Mr. President, we are approaching the end of this interview. The fifth and final section concerns regional and international geopolitics. The related questions are presented by Dieudonné Ungrana from Aujourd'hui au Faso and Jules Domsé from Vox Africa. You also have 15 minutes for this section.
All right, excellent. If you don't mind, we'll always leave aside for Vox. Relations with this country are execrable, and with the direct and frank language of a soldier and revolutionary that you are, you have stated that the reasons for this conflict are not against the people. They see nothing, but it is against the leaders who provide shelter and support to those destabilizing Burkina Faso. So under what specific and favorable conditions could there realistically be a significant lunch, a formal exchange of diplomatic ambassadors between these two particular countries?
That depends on... In any case, we are not the ones who started this situation. I remember right at the very beginning, even on September 30th, wasn't one of the first people to call me the president, and then his younger brother came back twice, we saw each other and all that. It's absolutely true. You could certainly say that the relationship was indeed good, but he genuinely wanted to go in a very specific direction. But as you have rightly said, as dedicated revolutionaries, we profoundly know that's precisely not why we are truly here. We were here for the revolution, and revolution means a break. You can't just follow a certain policy. So little by little, the relationship started to deteriorate, and as you noticed, all those who maybe wanted certain privileges, which I believe they didn't get, began to turn against us, settled over there, were maintained, protected, and everything. That's what we're talking about, because they also know exactly what we're talking about when they act against us. There isn't anyone who left Côte d'Ivoire and came here in his case. We observed for nearly 2 years. We spoke to them several times. They told us no, that we had to follow proper procedures, that justice had to be involved, issue warrants and all that. We did everything. He doesn't respond.
Mr. President, I don't
walk.
I'll follow up with my brother's question to stay on the topic of Côte d'Ivoire. As you know very well, Côte d'Ivoire has a presidential election this year in a few months. Is that something that interests you?
It interests us all the more because we have many compatriots in Côte d'Ivoire, after all. We're afraid there might be violence. And that's not exactly welcome. Because unfortunately, we've experienced violence in Côte d'Ivoire in past years with the Bayeri operations. Everyone in Burkina went through that. Today, we really hope there won't be any violence.
Earlier, you seemed to say something. I would like you to clarify, because in my opinion, it's a rather sensitive topic. Are you suggesting that today Côte d'Ivoire is being used as a rear base for an organization aiming to destabilize Burkina in the face of...
It's even more than that. A rear base, an organization used to destabilize Burkina. The enemies of Burkina are clearly over there, visible and protected. On top of that, there's the issue of terrorism. Of course not. Let's not kid ourselves. The authorities are colluding with the terrorists. Wait a minute. Do you really believe that maybe the Ivorian army is so powerful that when the terrorists just see them, listen, they don't even need to touch them or do anything? Do you believe that? They're supposedly so much more powerful than the 3 IAS armies. That's not true. It's a non-aggression pact. And when there is no non-aggression, you become a rear base. And all of this really worries me. If this country were to face a crisis, the country would be attacked again by terrorists. Because if it no longer wins, and if it does win, the country gets attacked again, and this country will collapse. It was a danger. That's why I kept telling the heads of state, you don't negotiate with terrorists. That's it.
So, Mr. President, what do you say to those who claim, well, geopolitics still matters with, this neighboring country that hosts the largest Burkinabe diaspora, while your critics accuse you of practicing gunboat diplomacy with this country to the detriment of our compatriots who are living there? What do you say to them?
Listen, who says that? We are Burkinabe. That's what we know. And we have decided to make a revolution, and we are going to do it. Now, whoever wants to join in can join in, but we can't be in the middle of a revolution and at the same time practice another model of diplomacy. I've told you, the deceitful diplomacy and all that comes with it, we're not ready to be part of that. If something isn't right, we should have the courage to tell you that it's not right. We shouldn't be hypocritical. Usually people in front of microphones and all that say, no, everything's fine. If that's the case, it's not true. Things are not going well. We need to have the courage to say it. We need to sit down, talk, and tell each other the truth. But if people don't want that, just because at a certain time, those guys have to leave, because we don't want a revolution in messy Africa, it's not going to work. So everyone should be prepared to face the consequences. That's one aspect of the situation. So,
to move away from Côte d'Ivoire, Mr. President, we're still staying at the level of, you have certainly seen the latest poll conducted by our colleagues at Jeune Afrique, and with results that may seem surprising, the populations of the Francophone countries are all in favor of the AES. I would even say that Côte d'Ivoire itself had 66% to specify what is being done at the AES level. So how do you receive this message?
Oh, really? I didn't even see that, because I no longer follow that media outlet.
Well, the contrasts are from the age groups they surveyed. Maybe they weren't expecting this result, but that's how it turned out. They went to Cameroon, they went to Senegal, they went to Benin, they went to Côte d'Ivoire. And over there, the people are all in favor of the AES, and for the most part appreciate what is being done at the AES level.
It's logical, I would say. West African populations are, most of the time, connected. It's the same family. It was the colonizer who divided us. And when people see that we're trying to unite, it only inspires, it can only bring joy. So it doesn't surprise me that these people appreciate it. And what surprises me is the fact that they published it. Why did they publish it? That makes you think, when you
order a survey, it's well known. Afterwards, you're obliged to publish the results. Maybe that's it.
But you have to be careful with these people because...
I totally agree with you.
Otherwise, I agree. It's normal, it's logical.
With your permission, may I ask you a question regarding your relationship with another organization? What are you still doing in the African Union?
Good question. Well, I would say that our situation in the African Union is so passive that we don't even know if we're in the Union or not. We've been suspended since then. No one talks to us. It's really complete radio silence. So honestly, I don't know if I'm in the Union or not.
But shouldn't we also make a statement by taking a historic step, as was done with ECOWAS, by slamming the door on an institution that clearly doesn't serve much purpose?
I had a discussion with the diplomat from that organization. And then we experienced his name as mediator, the president of Burundi, who was even supposed to come here last week, I think. But then there was a scheduling issue with us. And we're waiting for him. We want to hear from him because we ourselves want to know why they're behaving this way. Because we don't want to make a decision without knowing their motivation. Why did they decide to exclude us? Why are they behaving like this towards us? If we know their motivation, then if we leave, we could explain to our people, this is what they said, these are the reasons. And so we decide to leave. It's the same thing as with ECOWAS. We left, but if we're asked why we left, we can explain it to you. But today, if we leave the Union and we're asked, we ourselves don't even know why they suspended us. Why are they behaving like this? Sure, they said we're somewhat aware. But as of today, I thought you
can also leave because you feel that it's an organization working against Africa's interests. I don't think the African Union is taking a revolutionary stance like the one you're leading.
No. Out of respect for certain people, that's why, as long as the mediator who was appointed, who has already sent his envoy to make contact with us, we are waiting for him. It's truly out of respect for this president. We are waiting for him. Let him come and address the dispute. Let him tell us what is going on, and we will share with him the conclusions of our discussion.
Mr. President, let's move on to the Black Sea in Russia. So, the science and art of these instruments. You have a scientific background. So, on that day in Moscow, you asked the Kremlin leader to teach us how to fish instead of just giving us fish, meaning technology transfer. I think today it's true. Everyone agrees that this kind of external spoon feeding can't go on any longer. So where do we stand today regarding this technology transfer? Because you mentioned right away to our colleagues that one day we will even manufacture our own weapons. So where are we currently with this technology transfer?
I think they clearly got the message. I stated it in 2023 during the St. Petersburg summit. We were given wheat. We shouldn't have to go and ask for wheat again. We need to become self-sufficient. If we are given fish, we must learn how to fish ourselves. And I think that with the initiatives we are currently developing, we have requested during the visit that a certain number of scholarships be offered to students so they can go and learn science. They agreed. So there are already people who have gone to specialize in certain advanced fields. If you look at the creation of the Atomic Agency, we already have students whom we sent last year who are receiving training in the atomic field, which is an advanced technology. We will continue to send more every year. So with the initiatives we're developing, we've asked the UCI to offer a number of scholarships to students so they can go and learn science. They agreed. So there are already people who have gone into certain specialized fields. If you look at the creation of the Atomic Agency, we've already sent students since last year who are being trained in the atomic field, which is an advanced technology. We will continue to send more every year. So there are several other fields where we have requested training. It's not just Russia. We've also requested special training from China and sent students there. We're going there as well. Basically, we're tapping into every possible technology we can develop to send students for training.
So geopolitically, well, the Captain President, he's going to betray me today. He put the Burkina into orbit like back in the days of 154. How does that make you feel today? A country like Burkina, a little captain. What does it open up for you politically today to be at the pinnacle?
Do you think...
Still keep your head on your shoulders?
On the contrary, keeping your head on your shoulders is a burden. To see that it's a global mission that has been entrusted to us. Seeing that everyone is interested in Burkina, I wouldn't call it pressure, but it is a burden and a responsibility. And we have to take it on with all the necessary focus. We don't have the right to fail. Whether we like it or not, we are going to follow the will of the people because they are the ones who made this possible. So as we've seen, Burkina is really in orbit, as you say. And we are working to keep Burkina in this position. To be the country of upright people, to be a model nation, to be the country that will move out of this underdeveloped situation. To become, in a few years, a highly developed country, to achieve a miracle, because that's what people are aspiring to. And also to be able to contribute our voice and everything we have for the happiness of the world, if I may say so.
Since you became head of state, you have traveled very little. The only country in Africa you have visited is probably Russia, if I'm not mistaken. And we've seen your African counterparts in the United States with a sort of class photo with President Trump. And I'll share a comment from a friend of mine who said to me, Captain Traoré would never have accepted that. Is that true?
Well, listen, I travel very little, as you mentioned. And I went to Russia twice for very specific purposes. And it's rare that I go to other partners and only for very specific objectives. Other than that, I don't plan to travel around the world like others do. Because for me, you have to stay focused and work for your country. President Trump himself said America first. It's America first. He works for the interests of Americans. And so I am working for the interests of the Burkina Faso people. If I have no interest there, what would I go there for?
Now, one of the major geopolitical issues today is, of course, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We see more and more countries taking a stand. We have seen Western European countries, to name them, say that they are going to recognize, and this is a strong signal, the Palestinian state. But as usual, Africa is almost silent. It is in a wait-and-see position. From Burkina, can you give a position that helps us understand a bit what Africa thinks about what we fear is happening today in the Gaza Strip?
I can give you a position that shows what Africa thinks.
Some Africans or some African people.
Because many African leaders have a different way of seeing things. It's Africa's misfortune, if I may say so, we are not united. We don't see things the same way. Some are afraid, some are hesitant, some are there for the interests of other people. The West, there are people who grew up over there, did everything over there, and then they come and are made heads of state in Africa. So they're the ones who control all of that. And so Africa can't have its own opinion. But I know that deep down, no one would want to see what's happening over there happen in their own country. But unfortunately, if the African continent is facing such a situation, in Congo, what are we even doing for Congo?
With Democratic Republic of Congo,
how many millions of deaths has it been, and for how many years? We ourselves are at war. Have you seen any African countries even raise their voices for Burkina over the past 10 years? It's rare. It's rare. So Africans have this problem. On the other hand, when someone sees a problem in Europe, everyone is united. People quickly manage to find solutions. The United States is the same. But Africa has this problem. You see, we've been fighting for 10 years. You haven't heard anyone raise the voice of Burkina Faso at international institutions or anything like that, nor Mali, nor Niger. Our people are dying, it's not their problem. Congo is dying, it's not our problem. Last time I tried, in one of my speeches, to speak out about how many millions of deaths there have been. Suddenly, look at how they are tearing each other apart. There are already so many conflicts on our soil. We can't even make our own voices heard. So how are we going to speak up for others? So we Africans need to wake up. Can Burkina Faso
recognize the Palestinian state? Is Burkina Faso ready to recognize the Palestinian state? Why
not? It's a state. It's a state. Why wouldn't we recognize the Palestinian state? What's happening is very serious. I think the Palestinian state exists, it should exist. Otherwise, this war will never end. Wherever things are divided, it will never end. While you think it's going to end, it starts up again even stronger. We're going to keep going like this. But I also think that a lot of the responsibility lies with the countries in that region because it's their area and people there should be able to lead the way in finding a solution to this conflict. And as for us, as we keep fighting here, the Burkinabe state, which must endure, that's what's most important. And we are fighting for our Burkinabe state.
There you have it, Mr. President. We have now reached the end of these 90 minutes facing the press. Thank you for your availability. And thank you for this wonderful opportunity given to both the national and international press. But before we part ways, Mr. President, do you have a special message for the people of Burkina Faso on the occasion of the 3rd anniversary of your accession to the highest office?
To the people of Burkina Faso, it's been 3 years that we've been here and moving forward together. And first of all, I want to express my gratitude. Heartfelt thanks because the people have remained focused on listening to the message we've conveyed. Because one of the most important tools we've used is also communication. And because we understood that imperialists have always used communication to destroy Africa. Because everything that happens in terms of conflict is due to manipulation. These are manipulations. Look, let me take the case of Sudan again. Two groups are being manipulated by powerful nations. Shouldn't we just talk to each other, sit down together, and make use of our resources collectively? Are we going to provide for our people, or are we going to keep tearing each other apart? All the political assassinations of leaders in Africa, the wars and everything else, it was all through communication that people were manipulated. And communication is very important. And in this, the Burkinabe people have been focused on understanding the message. And we will continue to communicate to help them understand. What we are doing is about where we are heading. That is the most important thing. Secondly, I also thank God who has allowed us, despite the war, to take action and communicate about these actions so that people understand that a better tomorrow is possible. Hope is allowed, and as long as people hold on to that hope, we will reach the point we are aiming for. And the last thing is this security situation, to reassure everyone that the war will end in Burkina Faso. We will live in peace. We will make use of our resources as we should, and we will develop ourselves. That is a certainty. The dream we have for Burkina Faso, we will accomplish it. We will continue to fight the last important stronghold of terrorism. We will continue to reclaim them, just as we did in 2025 with that Great Valley, which had been a major economic reservoir for the terrorists, and which we have taken back. There are several other places where their terrorist tolls continue and everything is set up to supply them. We will recover every season, and hope is allowed. So good luck to everyone. Stay focused and resilient. And we will keep talking to each other. That is the most important thing. Once we talk to each other, we understand each other and we move forward. Thank you.
Mr. President, that will be the final word. Thank you, dear colleague, for your various questions addressed to the President of FASO, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Thank you, dear viewers, for following this interview with great interest. So please stay with our programming. Thank you.
Oh, families, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your time. If you enjoyed this interruption between the journalist and the president of Burkina Faso, please kindly share it. Let others also hear from you. I wanted to make it part 1, 2, 3, but sometimes when I do that, some of the videos, they will sit there and no one will listen to them. It won't work. And so I decided to make it one as it is. So yes, families, it is what it is. Thank you so much, families, for your time, your patience, for listening to our president. Tomorrow will be exactly 3 years since he has taken power. And so this interruption is very, very important to clear our mind, also to know what is going on from here onwards. I won't waste any more of your time. Credit to BF1 RTB News Faso 7, C360, and all of you for your questions. They are all important questions. And we appreciate our president a lot. Congratulations to our president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Thank you so much for answering all those questions. I know it will take you like 3 hours to answer it all, but editing has played its part. You did well. Thank you. God bless you all, and may God continue to protect you all. My VIPs, my kings and queens, my returning families, if you are new here, please, I've translated and worked hard on this video, so don't come and insult me. I will see you soon. If you like it, please give it thumbs up before you go. God bless you. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.